How y'all doing? It's Jared. It's a Squid Industries Squiddy. It's a PVC plastic balisong trainer, right? This thing got a lot of hype when it came out onto the market. A lot of people have been looking at it. A lot of people are thinking about it. And I made a comment in my balisong collection video that this thing isn't the best flipper. It's not a very good flipper, right? And people took exception to that. Some people actually got kind of upset that I said that. And there's this stigma out there that people have that if it's not the absolute best, then it's crap, right? If it's not the absolute best, if it's not an Alpha Beast or a Replicant or a Benchmade 87 or something, you know, something really high-end or a Basilisk, whatever it is, if it's not that, then it's crap, right? If it doesn't flip that well, then it's just bad. That's not the case. There's intermediate flippers, you know what I mean? There are things that are okay. That is legitimately a possibility in the balisong industry, in the knife design, is to be an okay flipper. It doesn't have to be so polarized. It doesn't have to be on one end or the other. This thing is okay. It's not the best. It's not crap. It is definitely balanced for what it is. There was a lot of engineering that went into this. I'll get into that further actually when I get down onto the table. But the flipping of this thing is kind of hard. It is hard to manipulate if you're used to flipping a normal balisong, because the moves are all the same, the actions are all the same, the actual finger motions are all the same, but the amount of energy that you're using, the amount of momentum that you're actually putting into the knife is completely different than if you take it up against something like this Chimera here. This is a 2018 Bradley Chimera, and the weight on this thing is completely different. I put less energy into flipping this than I do something like the Squiddy. But it still does flip, and it does a really good job at it. And honestly, being made out of PVC, being made out of plastic, that's directly onto the blade. Thinnest part, thinnest part. I'll do it again. Right? And I'm just dropping that on the floor. I've got hard tile floors. I can beat the crap out of this thing. This thing has taken a serious beating. And it keeps on taking it. So in that regard, it is a very good trainer, because trainers kind of, if you're going from the training aspect, you're learning, right? And when you're learning, you're going to be dropping the knife more. That's just how it is. And so learning, actually being able to have something that you can drop over and over and over again, and it's not going to break, it's going to take that abuse, is definitely a nice thing. It's a very nice attribute to a flipper. And I mentioned as well that this thing, in that video, in my review video, I had mentioned that this thing may be just a little bit expensive for what it is, and I'm going to retract that statement. If this thing was made in China, if this thing was made in Pakistan, if this thing was made anywhere else besides the United States from a small production company, Squid Industries isn't a large company, and if it was done by any other company, any other corporation, I would say that this thing would be overpriced. But since who is actually making it, since you're getting it from where you're actually getting it from, this is a small startup company made in the United States to to good craftsmanship, you are actually getting quite a bit for your money in this balisong, because to produce this thing and sell it for $42, USA manufactured to the tolerances that this thing has. Tolerances, that's something you normally come across when you're talking about metal, titanium, steel, things like that. This is made out of plastic. But it's still, I'll show you when I get down onto the table, the tolerances in this thing actually come into play. That is actually a factor with this. So being able to manufacture it for as low of a cost as they have is, it's definitely a respectable thing. I can't really complain about that. I would buy another one of these if I broke this one, if I lost this one. I may honestly wind up giving this thing away to somebody at some point. And again, I'll explain why that is here in a minute. But I may wind up giving this thing away. And if I do, I'm going to buy another one, because I don't want to be without a Squiddy. Because I definitely do like this thing. Let me get down on the table. All right, so it's not the best value for your dollar, right? It's not the absolute best flipper out there, right? It's not really thrilling. Come on, focus for me. It's not really thrilling in too many aspects. It's just really not. It's kind of plain Jane. It's made out of plastic. It's a balisong trainer. It doesn't even, it doesn't have a safe handle or a bite handle. It's completely neutral. what is this thing excellent for? I think this thing is freaking amazing, and I absolutely love it for flipping in public. This is a public flipper because it is not intimidating. This is, it still kind of looks like a knife, and it's shiny, and it's shaped like a blade, and if I throw this at somebody and it nails them in the leg, it's still gonna hurt them. Like, this is gonna hit with some authority. If I drop this on a dog's head when I'm walking on the trail, it's gonna hurt them. There's still some... There is some negative attributes even to something like this without a dull blade. In school, if you're flipping in school, I've heard a lot of stories about people still getting in trouble with even things like flip fins for flipping in school, which is just ridiculous. But if you are able to do that, something like this Boker right here that still resembles a knife, or this crazy thing from CSGO, they all look like knives. This thing is not intimidating. It's almost got a little smiley face right there on it. It's made out of plastic. It weighs less, it weighs like 2 ounces. It's just not intimidating. I feel perfectly fine flipping this in the mall. I've flipped this on BART, which is the Bay Area Rapid Transit System. It's like the subway system around here in the San Francisco Bay Area. I flipped this everywhere. I flipped this driving. I flipped this in line at the store. I flipped this everywhere. This is my everywhere balisong. It's not the one that I'm going to go for. If I have the option to pick a trainer, to pick something that I really am going to spend some serious time flipping a knife or something like that, I'm going to go with a little bit better trainer. I'm realistically going to go with a live blade in reality, something like this, if I have that option. But I don't always have that option. It's actually quite rare that you do nowadays. Brandishing a knife, it's a serious crime. You can get the cops called on you for flipping a balisong, even if it's completely legal for you to be carrying it for EDC. Playing with it in public can get you in trouble. They can call the cops on you. So with this thing right here, that's just not the case. Even if somebody did wind up calling the cops are just going to come up, look at this thing and be like, yeah, I'm not even going to confiscate that. It's a freaking piece of plastic. And so it enables you to keep that skill set. It enables you to get into that time and to do all of the good things, that meditation, that heavy thought process, that just general fun, all of the things that flipping a balisong can give you, but at the same time, it's just a piece of plastic, which I absolutely love. The tolerances on this thing are actually really good. If you look at the play there, come on. I'm using a new camera setup. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm probably going to wind up switching back because I can't get this thing to focus in right. But you can see here, there's basically no space in between that actual blade and the washers themselves, and it is phosphorus bronze washes. The handle play is very minimal, so the tolerances on this thing with the blade rub, there's minimal blade rub. There obviously is, especially since it's using the inside of, it's actually clanking onto the inside of the handle. That's what gives you your stopping engagement. So it does have, hold on. Yeah, it does have some really interesting design aspects. I like the fact that they did tang pins with this giant little, the actual tang the nipple sticking off the end of this blade here escapes me. But look how wide it is. That took a lot of engineering to be able to get this thing to fit perfectly together. And one thing I will complain a little bit about is the Loctite, right? Because it didn't come Loctited from the factory, right? So when I bought it. So when I took it apart and I did Loctite it, but these handles are made out of plastic, and there's so much more give in these than any other balisong, right? And so if you're going to be, doing something without a captured pivot, you squeeze the handles together, it puts tension on the pivots themselves, and you can unscrew it because it put tension on the barrel, and you can unscrew the screw, right? That's not the case with the Squiddy, because there's just no tension delivered when I actually squeeze these handles together in the open position, and I can't squeeze them together in the closed position. And so what I did was wound up cutting a little notch, you can see there, in the actual barrel. I did that so that I could actually get into this knife and remove the Loctite, because some of the lubricants, I was doing some experimenting with lubricants, and I had some gumming up between a Chris Reeves fluorinated grease and a Benchmade blue lube. I put them both in here at the same time just to kind of see what would happen, and they gummed it up. So I had to take it apart and clean it, and I did have to do that to get it apart. So yeah, it is a little bit harder to work on, but again, it's kind of set it and forget it. This is just one of those things that you're going to be able to beat the crap out of. It's flexible, it's bendy, it's very resistant to shock. It's just an excellent little knife. This is an all-around just EDC balisong trainer. It's not good. It's not the best flipper out there. It's not going to be the best trainer, but it is definitely a sick thing, and I'm glad that it exists. Y'all have a good one.